I do think there are some very popular games that will be impacted in the short term, and then over a longer term, even more will be impacted.
Let's start with a bit of a general question. Can you give us the latest on the negotiations and just how it's going from your perspective?
Well, the negotiations with this group of the biggest video game companies in the world have been ongoing for more than 18 months. Obviously, we launched a strike last week. We have exchanged proposals with them. They know precisely what is at issue. In fact, this is probably one of the most straightforward labor disputes you can imagine, because there's really one issue, which is artificial intelligence and establishing parameters that are fair and ethical with respect to our members to make sure that they get to retain control over the use of their own face, voice, body, and that they're paid fairly when AI is used to create performances with them. And so that's really what the issue is all about. And the companies know, and actually the public knows what we are seeking, because we've publicly released our interim agreements and our tiered independent agreements that contain exactly the kind of language that's necessary in order to provide a fair, equitable level of protection for our members.
You mentioned how long this has been going on, these negotiations, and also that kind of sticking point of artificial intelligence. Why is it such a sticking point?
It's a great question. It was one of the toughest issues to resolve in last year's TV theatrical strike that a lot of people are familiar with. And it was, in fact, the very last issue resolved in that negotiation as well. The thing that's weird about it, though, is that since that time, we've been able to make similar deals with the studios and streamers, again, for animation, with the major record labels. Basically, all of the companies in the entertainment industry are sort of getting to the place where they understand these basic protections are necessary. Why the video game companies are refusing to extend them to all of our members who work for them, that is a bit of a mystery.
And is this still about learning about artificial intelligence? Everyone seems to have different levels of knowledge of it. I wonder, is that something you see? We're all learning what AI can do in the future, right?
There may be some element of that, although, the video game companies have been using artificial intelligence longer than just about anybody because of the nature of video game production and how video games operate. So there may be some element of that, but I think there's also an element of really wanting to have 100% control and wanting to be able to just use the proceeds of this work without any kinds of limitations. And that may have been something that was conceivable in a world where humans had the veto of just refusing to do something. They could say, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do it. My face and my voice are not going to be part of it. But now that this AI technology lets these companies put your face, your voice, your body into something that you never did, that you may not even have agreed to, that's a line that we have to draw in the sand. And I think other companies have figured that out. And I think the video game companies are becoming more and more isolated because they're really the only ones trying to hold this line of, we can do whatever we want with your face, your voice, your body.
Last time video game actors went on strike, it lasted for around a year. How long do you expect this dispute to go on for?
Well, I hope not that long. I mean, the fact is, last year we had to go on strike for almost 4 months with all the major studios and streamers. But the result of that was the beginnings of a consensus within the industry about the kinds of protections that performers rightly deserve. And so I hope that this time around, with the clear public support that we've had ever since last year, with the, as I said, sort of isolation of these companies in this position, with movement happening on the public policy level, hopefully this time we'll be able to bring it in a lot sooner than that. But make no mistake, our members are 100% committed, and they will stay on strike as long as it takes to achieve a fair deal.
And has there been any real progress since the strike was called?
I wouldn't say there's been any real progress yet. I mean, it has only been a little bit less than a week. And so I think that it's going to take a little more time than that. But I do think it's clear the companies are focused on this issue. This, I think, has got their attention. We had a huge picket line last Thursday out in front of Warner Brothers Games at the Warner Brothers Studios in Burbank, California. Hundreds and hundreds of our members showed up. It was, I think, a really powerful demonstration of the unity and solidarity being just as strong this year as it was last year. And I think those things will have an impact.
You touched on this before when we're talking about artificial intelligence. You know, a lot of experts seem to agree it's maybe not quite as clever as people make out, and it's a bit of a way from being able to sort of replace humans entirely. Just go through those reasons. Why are you so worried about AI?
Well, this is a very specific use of AI that we're talking about, which is replicating performances by human performers. And I think it's really of concern because that level of technology does exist today and it's rapidly improving. And I think everyone can understand how fundamentally unfair it is for someone to have to compete against themselves for a job. I mean, this business is hard enough competing against other people, but when a video game studio can generate a duplicate of you to compete against you and maybe not even have to pay that duplicate, that's not a tenable situation for anyone. That's unfair. It's unethical. So this is something that has to be addressed right now. Certainly the expanding use of generative AI, we're all seeing these new tools coming out almost on a monthly basis that can do things that are just generations ahead of where they were just months ago. So I think that the time really is now to start putting some guardrails in. If we don't put them in now, by the time we get to it, it will be too late. So this is a battle that I think our members have a consensus has to be fought today.
And in terms of gamers, the people consuming these games and the people enjoying these games, how will these strikes affect them? Will we see delays like we saw with movies and TV shows previously?
You know, it will hit the video game industry a little differently because of the long lead time in productions and the way video game productions work, and frankly, what performer's role is in those productions. But I do think there are some very popular games that will be impacted in the short term, and then over a longer term, even more will be impacted. And I do just want to say, we were just at Comic-Con last week in San Diego, huge festival of, among other things, gamers. And the level of support from the gamer community and from the public is incredibly strong. They understand why our members are fighting this fight. And frankly, our members are the face and voice of these games to an entire generation of gamers, and they care about what happens to the people who create those characters they love. So I do think that that we're going to have strong support there.
And just going back to what you said there about some possible delays, are there any specific franchises, any specific games that could be affected in the short or long term?
There are, but I'm not going to name any names just yet. But I would say that I think we see for sure sort of live gaming as being something that'll be affected the most quickly, because, of course, those are games that are constantly rolling out new content at all times, rely on subscribers and constant refresh in order to maintain their relevance. So I think those will probably be the games where we see the impact the most quickly, but it can and will affect a wide swath of the game area. But hopefully the companies will come to their senses and we'll be able to reach a deal before that has to happen. But just, make no mistake, this is an existential fight that our members are in. They know that this is the future of their career. It's the future of their ability to control the use of their image and likeness and voice and performance and movement. And it's not something they're going to give up on.
And just finally, Duncan, I want to go back to something you said before about the audience and that sort of solidarity and support. Is there anything the audience who plays games can do if they want to show support? I mean, you said you've experienced it there, but for our audience that play games, is there anything they can do to show solidarity with video game actors?
Absolutely. Look, I'm a gamer myself, and so I know how important games can be to people. And I think number one thing they can do is really use their social media, use just their communication tools at their disposal, whether that's even just an email to these companies to let them know that it's not okay for the companies to, to treat their performers or really any of their workers unfairly, especially as it relates to AI. We have a whole social media campaign going on, and they can find that by using hashtag Video Game Strike, and also at our website, SAG-Aftra.org. We have all kinds of information and ideas about how folks can support. But I think the number one thing is really inform the community about what's going on and why it's important, and let the companies know that it's not okay with you for performers to be mistreated by AI.